First of all, thank you for choosing to grow yourself. Thank you for choosing to stretch yourself. Thank you for choosing me to help you do the stretching. Today, wow, can you believe April 27th, 2021, the year after? Wow. Everybody just take a deep breath. Now, I am James Bond, John C. Maxwell certified coach and owner and proprietor of Well Driven Life LLC, a life coaching and professional development company. I am honored to be here today. It is a pleasure and a privilege to be asked to come on and make people stretch, help them stretch. Sarah, wow. I was a part of SHRM through the late 80s, early 90s in my corporate time that made all the leadership get into, or get SHRM certified, I should say. And I kept getting the same thing also as well. I kept getting recertified, and at the time, of course, I'm telling my age now, but it's phenomenal because we have to understand changes, regulations, and rules, bylaws, and all that type of thing. So thank you again, Springfield. I'm honored to be here. So stretching. I rewrote this numerous times because you deserve it. And you deserve to always have the best presented to you when you're being presented to. So, stretching. Stretching. Growth stops when you lose the tension between where you are and where you could be. So, growth stops when you lose the tension. So, a lot of you are put in position, leadership, some first time, some numerous years. But you have to be okay with stretching your people. As a leader compared to a manager, you have to develop people around you. Some people go as far as you have to develop your replacement. That's a sign of a great leader. And I agree with that on many levels. And that's what I was taught in my early career in college, actually, when I first became a manager, by my manager. You know, he was very uninsecure, or very secure, proper word there. So he was very secure. So I really enjoyed working for him at the time. You know, a series of things you can do as far as talking about stretching. A, God gives us all potential, gives us all potential. Our gift to God is to develop it and to give it away. So stretching people around you, you have to provide them with what you've learned so they can add it to what they know and they can go farther than where you've been. That is a great sign that you are stretching properly, stretching the people in your space. So let's discuss this a little further here. Personal stretching is a way of life. And what happens with that, it has to become a way of life. And it should become a way of life. How you do that is making sure that you give your all every single day. A lot of you have assistants, HR assistants, who want to become like you and move beyond maybe where you've been. But your obligation, and not just your job, we're going to not talk about your job because that is such a small space to people. So your responsibility, your obligation is to make sure that people around you are getting stretched. And how you do that, of course, is stretch yourself as well in the same process. So the benefit in the conversation that you can have with those people around you as you develop them and stretch them while stretching yourself. Few people even want to stretch. Think about that. Few people want to stretch. A lot of people get in positions in companies. They just get there to ride it out. They want to sit in the back of the bus and they want to just ride to retirement. Well, that's not fair to them. That's not fair to you. And it's just not fair to keep your gifts to yourself. So I challenge you, to think about that. How many people work for you or work with you who do not want to stretch? So take a moment and write that number down. The names are not important right now. Just write the number of people you know on the top of your paper, right-hand corner. Just write the number there. Is it one person? Is it 5 people? Just write it down because you know who they are. Next one, settling for status quo ultimately leads to destruction. If you don't stretch, most cases you'll shrink. Say that again. If you don't stretch, most cases you'll shrink. Why? Because the world is moving with or without you. So if I sit at a corporation as an HR person, as a C-suite person, and I'm sitting there at that company in 2012, say 500 people. 2015, there's 2,000 people. Guess what? I have literally shrank because I didn't stretch, because the company is growing with or without me. So think about that for a minute as well. Stretching always starts from the inside out. That means stretching your mindset. Right now, the world, or 2020 and beyond, or previous, to say, excuse me, was a lot of things happening, especially from an HR standpoint. I had numerous CEOs contact me in tears. How do I stop this? How do I prepare my HR department? How do I communicate with my minority employees? So I basically took them all through a process of stretching. And thankfully so that they were able to reach out and even make that statement. A lot of people throw in the towel. So I commend them for thinking enough of themselves and their corporation to reach out to me for the help, to stretch them. Okay, stretching always requires change. As you know, a position that allows you in, laws change, bylaws change, that line of unacceptable changes, and every single thing is changing. The weather's changing for the good, for the most part. Everything's changed. Communities change, cities change. So change actually is a good thing. And how you get ahead of the change is you start stretching your thinking. Well, this or that isn't so bad now that I've learned about this or that. Now, some things you have to have a hard line, of course, character. So I just really want you to focus on that for a minute. Just for a moment. What area, and this is to yourself private because some people like to keep it private, which is fine. What area that you know you need to stretch in? It is so important to understand that for yourself. A lot of people do not. And I must say that that is a fearful thing because we all need to stretch. I have been developing people in the leadership role with my company, which is now 13 years old, this 2021. And I am stretching, and I stretch. People ask, why do you go to these conferences on coaching, these conferences on leadership? Because I do not know it all, do not profess to know it all. But guess what? The answer is out there. So I need to seek it. So I challenge you all to just make sure on the inside, what is one thing that you know in your heart? And if you're a believer, that you know in your heart is wrong, or you can stretch and grow. Stretching sets you apart from others. Now, most of us know someone who we've came through the ranks with, who we've come up through high school, through college with, same profession we're in, but they're either out of the position or they're just out of life, period. And then you realize, looking back now, it's because they did not stretch. And you forget or you forgot how much you stretched. So actually, I want to take a moment there to commend you. A lot of times we get beat up about not growing, not advancing, but you are stretching. Proof of that is you're sitting here listening and you're processing what I'm saying. Guess what? That's stretching. So I commend you for caring about yourself enough and the company, but stretching is personal first. So I commend you. Stretching can become a lifestyle, and it should become a lifestyle. You should always want to make sure that you are growing in a way that makes you more uncomfortable at times. Some people say comfortable. No, uncomfortable at times. Because a lot of situations are uncomfortable. And how you know you're growing and stretching is that time when you become uncomfortable. I call it, you can call it procrastination. You can call it, being in the same place. You can call it, anything. Complacency is one thing that most people call it. But that is not a good place, because that does not help you grow and help you understand your position, your role, your responsibility, your obligation in this journey called life. So I again challenge you to look inside yourself. Reflect on this quote by Rabbi Neiman. If you won't be better tomorrow than today, then what do you need tomorrow for? If you won't be better tomorrow than today, then what do you need tomorrow for? And I will add on to his statement, what on earth do you need tomorrow for? And I learned this. I do a lot of work also with Lumosity. That is like a brain training kind of app for your phone. And I've done work with them since 2012. And the one thing that they said at one of the meetings we had is tomorrow can never be today, but today will be tomorrow. Wow. All right. Stretching gives you a shot at significance. Significance. And right now, again, touching on, because this is not a diversity conference, but touching on that conversation, because America's in that place right now, in general. And HR professionals will be, have been, and are affected by that. So stretch yourself to look at another person from a cultural standpoint, from a human being standpoint, and not just from an environment standpoint. Look in that mirror, and if you truly are what you want to be and or what you say you are, then that will cause you to stretch your thinking. And it will cause you to research. Now, of course, you may not be able to ask this person certain questions because, of course, they may be legal questions or just not questions that the person is ready to answer or would even receive properly from you. But there's always research. There's always the infamous Google. But I just challenge you to understand that and really think about that for a moment. There are a lot of different people, different looking people, different acting people, And not only from a cultural standpoint, but just from a standpoint of character traits. So just step back, look in the mirror, and ask yourself, what area have you stretched the most in? Now, 2020 has caused a lot of us, a lot of people to stretch some point to their breaking limit. So we pray that they will be recovered during that time as well too. So we think that situation has caused us who have come to that line, or those of us who have even get pushed a little more than normal, to think, to seek, to ask for help. So I thank the people that did that. My coaching business was tremendously, had tremendous growth, I should say, in 2020, starting in April. So that was a blessing in itself, that people would reach out rather than go in a corner and huddle and hide. So that was a phenomenal opportunity for me to use my gift to bless them and get past certain situations. So stretching. You always stretch before you exercise, or you should. Most people don't know, which I've learned being a gym rat over the years and working with some professional trainers and professional athletes, is that they stretch after, which I thought was, wow, that's interesting. You know, a lot of people, I might include myself, I've never thought about stretching afterwards. But I've learned over the years of being around, again, people who do that for a living, you know, athletes and so forth, who really understand that more than I do. And I said earlier, I don't proclaim to know it all. So I'm always have myself on sponge mode, which means not SpongeBob, but sponge mode, which means that I'm always trying to absorb information around me. So I think it is very important to understand that. So I would just challenge you to think about that for a minute. You know, what caused you, what pushed you? And after this video is over, after this, I challenge you to sit with a friend, sit with a colleague, and just talk about that for a minute. Have that coffee conversation, have that, you know, donut if you do donuts, have that cup of tea if you do cup of tea, but just have that conversation. You know, you'd be amazed at the people who were stretched, who are stretching, that you may never know, never have known. So it's very important to understand that. So overcoming the pain of stretching. Yes, there is pain in stretching. So let's not sugarcoat that. Let's not act as if it is not, because therefore we are defeating the entire purpose. And I would not be doing my responsibility if I did not tell you there is pain in stretching, because there is. So I just challenge you to understand this is overcoming those pains of stretching. In what areas of your life have you lost your stretch? What areas have you lost your stretch and are settling in? I don't learn anything new. I'd rather retire early. I'm thinking of retiring early. I quit this last job because I don't want to learn anything new. I don't want to be involved in that or this. Think about that for a minute. Somebody out there in your neighborhood, in your society, in your circle, in your community, in your town, in your state, in your wonderful nation that we live in, needs what you have, needs your advice. So you don't have a right to keep your knowledge, your gift. Stretch and give it away. Very, very, very important. How have you been able to define your own potential in stretching? Do you talk to your mentor consistently? Do you talk to your best friend consistently, your BFF? Do you talk about those areas when you sit with your CEO or your C-suite level person, whoever you are accountable to in the workplace? or even your spouse, who should be your best friend. So it's very, very important. If not, seek aid in this area. Again, seek someone to conversate with, to talk to, because people care. But as my mentor and my friend, John Maxwell says, people don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. I love that. I love that. And being nominated one of the top 100 coaches a few years back, and then also a few years after that, being nominated one of the top 200 of his coaches in the world was a phenomenal honor. So have an opportunity to sit with him one-on-one again and talk and get some things clarified from his opinion. So I just ask you, to seek someone you can sit and talk with. And of course, from an HR standpoint, you be very careful with things you discuss. I understand that. But you do have colleagues who have that same accountability that you have, that you can discuss with, especially at conferences like this, on your coffee breaks or bathroom breaks or lunch breaks. So it's very, very important. What habits have you developed that have hindered you in stretching? What habits? Stubbornness? What habits have you? Your own quiet circle? Fear? Fear is a habit. Fear can become a habit. So it is very, very, very important. Rate your satisfaction in areas of your life. Just rate yourself. In marriage, relationship, career, fitness activity, hobbies. Rate yourself. Have you stretched? Are you a painter to relieve your stress? But have you a garage full of paintings that you should have put on eBay? You should have made a video on YouTube to bless someone and to maybe even make it a additional source of income for you. So it's very important to understand what areas of your life and what areas have become average. So I ask you to stretch yourself. Stretch, stretch, stretch. Extremely, extremely important. Create a specific means for stretching in areas of your life in which you no longer are winning. What areas are you not winning in? So I ask you to write a plan. I always have my clients journal. Journaling is extremely important. As a matter of fact, journaling should be a law. That's how powerful I feel about it. I have my clients keep a journal, a small, again, little spiral notepad is fine. It's a journal or something fancy. So keep a journal by your bed, ladies in your purse, guys in your pocket, coat pocket, in your car. Write down your thoughts. It's very, very important to know what you're thinking and what time you thought it and why you thought it. But it's very, very important. So I ask you to remember to establish a balance between potential and your present place so that stretching is both possible and challenging. Stretching is both possible and challenging. The tension is critical. Yeah, stretching is a critical time. And I don't want to downplay that. Stretching is a critical, critical time. But you do not want to get so overwhelmed that you give up. This is why I remind you, stretching is a critical time. Now you can take a pause from stretching and go seek advice, meditate, pray, whatever your means of advice may be. But continue to stretch. Continue to stretch. So, your stretching goals should be smart. Your stretching goals should be smart. So, I mean by SMART is an acronym, of course. SMART. The S, specific. Words like more, bigger, faster are not specific. M, measurable. Without measuring, how do you know if you've stretched or you're successful at stretching? A, attainable. They should be something you are willing to do or an accountability partner is going to make sure you do that. R, they must be something you can actually do. I'm going to stretch to run the New York Marathon this fall. I'm not going to start practicing until early fall. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous, because guess what? That doesn't make any sense, physical sense. I'm going to run a marathon in 2022. I start training tomorrow, April 28th, 2021. That makes sense. Okay. The R, timed. Without a timed arrival, you are only creating a list. So timed, a finishing point. I'm going to stretch this far in this area in 90 days, in 30 days, in 2 weeks. Whatever the case may be, but an accountability partner is hugely important. So today, I just thank you to understand that stretching is going to make you better. Stretching is going to make you better. But stretching requires just that, stretching. Stretching could be a few things. I'm going to give you a few hints as we leave this conversation for the moment. Stretching. Do I not talk enough to my spouse or significant other? I will talk more. I will make myself talk more. Okay, the big one now, I was talking to a client, actually it's a big one in 2020, which was kind of interesting to me, kind of humorous at the same time. One of the members of this couple was an Avenger fanatic. So they rewatched all the Avenger movies, and the spouse was losing their mind. They're not because they were a DC comic person, but because they were not into them. But they learned to stretch. They learned to look at it from the action standpoint, not from the plot standpoint. They looked at it from the action standpoint, because guess what they realized after I gave them some tips about this? You love action movies, right? Yes, I love action movies. So those movies have a lot of action. Now, if you're a Avenger fanatic or addict, you want to watch the storyline, which is great. But the spouse of this person couldn't understand, was not following the storyline of the characters. But I helped them to understand probably the last 5 or 6 movies they watched in this binging process. They were excited because they really started looking at it from an adventure, from an action standpoint, compared to a storyline. Now that may be simple to some, but those of you who watch those series will really get that. And very, very, very important. So I challenge you to stretch with yourself. Stretch, more importantly, stretch your team. Stretch your team. There's someone that you need to develop, and developing is going to require stretching. So I am Coach James Bond, James Bond, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I thank you because today, believe it or not, you made the world a better place because you decided to invest in you. And no one's going to invest in you like you. So thank you for challenging yourself to go through this process. Thank you for understanding that you need to go through this process. And thank you for those 5 or whatever number you wrote at the top corner of your paper earlier, those people you mentioned. Thank you for really developing them, making them accountable to themselves, not just to you, but to themselves. Thank you so much. Again, James Bond, the best life coach on planet Earth and leadership development champion. I'm here life gets stuck, call me. I can help. Thank you so much, Sarah. Awesome, awesome, awesome time today. I challenge you. Tell the person next to you one thing, one takeaway. And then I'm here for questions and answers. Thank you.